Chapter 27. Jane POV. Tears of frustration streamed down my face as I stormed away from him. Zelda and Margaret stood there waiting, but I was too upset to speak to anyone. All I wanted was to run into my office and shut the door. Both of them followed me inside, Margaret clutching a piece of paper in her hand. "You okay?" Margaret asked, and I nodded. However, I felt anything but okay. That was Carmela's car. I knew it was silly, but it was hers, just like everything else of hers I kept down in the storage lockers. I couldn't bring myself to throw anything away. "We will get it back," Zelda offered, but I shook my head. He had it destroyed when I refused to let him mark me. That man. "I'm sorry, Jane," Margaret cursed, and I sniffled. It wasn't their fault. Margaret cleared her throat, and I glanced at her as she rested on the edge of my desk while I used a tissue to wipe away my childish tears. Buying another car was no issue, but I loved that car because it was hers. The inspector. "Crap, I forgot," I told them, getting up, and Margaret waved me away, holding a piece of paper out to me. I took it from her and read it. A sound of annoyance left me when I saw what was written on it. "This is nonsense." "They're up to standard. He checked last time," Margaret nodded. "He said he'll be back in a week to check if the guardrails are fixed and if the fence around the pool has been replaced." "Anything else?" I asked, and Zelda chewed her lip nervously. "He said whatever you've done to piss off the Alpha, you need to fix it. He's been asked to find any fault to shut us down unless you give Brian what he wants." "You didn't tell him?" "Of course not," I nodded in relief. "I'll handle this, then I'll come and grab the kids from school with you," I told Zelda, who nodded. "Also, one of the fridges is down." "I've sent for an electrician," Margaret added as they were leaving. This day couldn't get any worse. However, I spoke too soon. It turned out that no electrician would come out, not even a handyman. I went through my contact list of rogues with different trades, looking for anyone with skills in appliances or electrical work, but found none. And Carol's father was away from the city visiting his mate's family. When it's time to pick up the kids, Zelda meets me outside the hotel by her car. "Any luck?" "No," I groan. "We'll figure it out. We still have one running, and we could possibly bring one down from one of the apartments. We'll have to bring two down. One won't be big enough. And that means two apartments won't be available until I order a new one. If I can even order a new one. I have a strange feeling we'll be struggling to get it delivered." The following day, another Forsaken was reportedly spotted last night. A few people staying at the hotel decided not to risk it and left, knowing the hotel was a good entry point into the city. Regardless, it was Saturday, and we were waiting for the food delivery to arrive for the wedding that would be held that afternoon. As I had anticipated, I couldn't secure a delivery truck with the new fridge in time. We had to wait a week, and it took 6 of us to haul 2 fridges down from the apartments out back that ran next to the functions room. Thankfully, the Forsaken sightings had scared off a few guests, giving us extra rooms in the hotel itself to make up for being down 2 apartments reserved for the wedding guests. I glanced at my watch. The food delivery should have arrived in the city an hour ago. "What's wrong, Mommy?" Valentine asked as I paced frantically out in the loading dock, waiting for the delivery to arrive. "Just waiting for a supplies truck, sweetie." "What are you doing?" I inquired, halting in my tracks to observe him. His hand was propped up on his chin as he peered intently at a sheet of paper. Earlier, he had requested some photos, and I had entrusted him with my photo album to make his selections. He had been diligently engrossed in a school project, working quietly in the delivery shed situated at the back of the kitchen. His patience was remarkable. Carol often struggled to remain still for extended periods, yet Valentine had been here for an hour without a single complaint, keeping company as we awaited the egregiously tardy truck. "Do you have any pictures of my dad?" he asked. I immediately froze, hair standing up on the back of my neck. I got closer to him to see what he was looking at. No, I don't think I do," I told him, brushing his hair back and glancing at what he was working on. "Is this for school?" I asked him, and he nodded. It was a family tree. "Carol has pictures of her dad." "Why haven't you got any pictures of mine?" he asked. I chewed the inside of my lip. Amongst the small cutout pictures, Carmela stood at the top, with the space beside her conspicuously vacant. My commitment to honesty had always been unwavering. He was aware that Carmela was his paternal grandmother, though memories of her were faint. The gap beside her remained unfilled as I couldn't chance him uttering his grandfather's name at school. The next line was a picture of me along with a spare that was blank. Coming off my picture were some lines where he had glued cut-out pictures of Margaret and Zelda. You put them in our family tree? I smiled. Yes, they are my aunties. Carol and Tessie are my cousins. Our little village, Valentine stated. That's right, our little village, our family, I told him, feeling like I could cry. He stared at the blank spots on the page. You really don't have a photo of him? Valentine asked. I shook my head, wishing I could give him one. I could possibly get one off the internet, but the teachers at school would recognize him instantly. What about your parents and my grandpa? He asked, pointing to the other vacant spots. Once again, he was seeking something I couldn't provide, and it filled me with guilt. They were too recognizable, and I had my name changed before his birth. My father had eradicated all traces of me, and I adopted my grandmother's maiden name, Fernandez's. It was the sole remnant I retained from my family and the life I had relinquished. I will check, I told him, and he smiled brightly. What were they like? My parents. He nodded. You never talk about them. I thought of what I could tell him. I knew this day would come, and I dreaded these sorts of questions. The information I could give him was limited. Well, my mom looked a lot like me. I have her facial features, but my dad's eyes and his dark hair. My dad. I paused for a second. When I was little, I used to think he was a superhero. He liked to play and would always play with me and my sister after he finished work. You have a sister too? A real one, he asked, and I nodded sadly. She used to be my best friend. What happened to them? Can I meet them? He asked. Maybe one day, I told him, though whether that day would come was unforeseeable. My phone started ringing and Valentine turned back to his work. Glancing at the screen, I saw it was the delivery truck I was waiting on. You're late, I answered. Yes, and it's out of my hands. I've been stopped at the city entrance. I tried to explain, and I had to wait for some alpha to get here. They've been searching the truck and only just gave my phone back, the man told me, and I sighed. Everything still cold? I asked. Yes, the delivery is fine, but that alpha I was telling you about wants to speak with you. Which one? Alpha Brian, he said his name was. I'm not too familiar with your kind or their politics, but he asked a bit about you, asked if I was a secret lover. He seems quite intense, he said nervously before clearing his throat. I'll chuck him on, the delivery driver told me. Jane, it seems you have found yourself in another predicament. Brian's voice chuckled from the other end. Stop messing around, I need that truck. I have a wedding in 5 hours. Well, then seems like you will want to negotiate then? I am not letting you mark me. Brian, this is my life, my job. It's not a time for me to be messing around and playing games, I snapped at him, forgetting Valentine was sitting behind me. I glanced over my shoulder and met his questioning gaze before sighing. What do you want? I asked, before quickly adding. Anything but. Let me hold the alpha meeting at your hotel, he said, cutting me off. Definitely not, I told him, feeling a pit in my stomach. That's my offer. What have you got to lose? It brings more business to your hotel and will get you media coverage for it, Brian said, and I rolled my eyes. That was the last thing I wanted. However, that wasn't the only issue. It would risk Brian finding out who my father is. It would also mean confronting my father. So, am I sending the truck back where it came from? I need an answer. You have a lot of seafood in this truck. It would be a shame for it to go to waste. Plus, this is way less of a commitment than you agreeing to let me mark you. I pressed my lips together, a mix of frustration and resignation bubbling within me. Fine, what date? I spat the words out through gritted teeth, though a part of me felt a glimmer of relief that we had finally reached some sort of agreement. Maybe it wouldn't be as bad as I feared. Perhaps this could even be an opportunity for Valentine to meet my sister and mother. But deep down, I knew better. It could just as easily turn into a humiliating ordeal, or worse, my son could be denied. Or, in some unlikely scenario, things could go smoothly. But that seemed like nothing more than wishful thinking. Any date in 3 weeks, you can pick the date, but it has to be 3 weeks max, Brian informed me. And what about my delivery? I interjected, a touch of urgency creeping into my voice. Then, another thought struck me suddenly. Oh, and the restaurant fridge blew up, so if you want the alpha meeting held at my hotel, I need a new fridge delivered in the next hour. Think you can manage that? It will be there in 20 minutes, along with a fridge. I'm trusting you not to go back on your word, and I advise you don't. I'll text you the numbers, and you can send me the cost and details along with the date, Brian assured me. I'm not giving you my number. Just send it to the hotel email address, and I'll respond through email, I countered, maintaining my guarded stance. You don't have to give it to me, love. Your delivery driver has it written right here on your invoice. Talk soon, Brian stated before ending the call. You stupid, I muttered to myself, realizing I had inadvertently shared my mobile number on the company's information. Damn it. Now I had to think fast about what to do regarding the entire alpha meeting issue. On the plus side, my truck was on its way along with a fridge. I would count it as a win for now.